And so to jump into then something related to more so to bodybuilding, which is something that I think I may have read this paper a long time ago. It may have been called out, I may be wrong, in Alan Aragon's research review like many years ago. But it was some of the research that you had looked at in terms of contracting muscles with no external force, essentially with no weights. And I don't want to make 2 + 2 = 5, but then you've always heard from Flex magazine or Muscular Development magazine or any of these magazines when I was growing up, posing in front of the mirrors. And I think probably in Pumping Iron they even mentioned hours of posing, it leads to like better peaks. And I actually even heard many years ago that that's one of the reasons that people have like big arms, because they flex their arms a lot and they don't flex their calves, probably because they don't train their calves. But so it would be interesting to kind of hear a little bit about that research, and then kind of if anything what I said there would make any sense, or I'm completely kind of making huge jumps.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting idea. That was a paper by my former student Brittany Counts. That was her master's thesis. It's kind of more of a proof of concept idea, because one of the things, it started with, again, kind of the low load literature suggesting that, man, the absolute load doesn't appear to be driving a lot of the muscle growth. The strength, again, being completely different, but muscle growth, very similar to that of high load exercise. And it was the same time where a lot of the work was coming out saying that not only that, the circulating hormones don't seem to be playing a role, an increase in that with an increase in muscle size, because muscle growth from exercise is a very local response, meaning that if I train my right arm will get bigger, but my left arm may get stronger, but not bigger. So again, highlighting that this appears to be a very local response, load-induced growth. So we were just kind of thinking and saying, if that's true, then if we were to take someone and just have them flex as hard as they can through a full range of motion, now that's not going to be, that's a high force contraction, but there's no external load. If we were to do this repeatedly, would we be able to stimulate growth? And if it's true that it's local and it's related to tension, and we do enough of those, it should produce growth. So that was kind of what we were thinking. And originally, I don't even remember what we were originally going to compare it to, but I was like, we need to compare this to high load exercise. Otherwise, I'm not sure I'm going to believe this. I want to see how it compares against, something we believe that most people believe is a maximal stimulus. And what we found is that strength was obviously different, and that's going to be a specificity component there. But muscle growth was very similar. Again, highlighting that, growth is a local response, and it seems to be in response to a sufficient amount of tension. So what does it have to do with bodybuilding? Does that mean if you add posing at the end of your bicep curl workout that's going to somehow augment it? That I don't know, because your muscle can only respond so much in a given training session. But if it's its own thing and you're flexing all the time, it's conceivable that it could do something. We do have evidence that as you said, that doing this does produce growth, and similar to that of high load exercise. But the combination of them together, I think there's going to come a point where you can only do so much within a given short period of time. But if you have days of just posing, it might serve as a stimulus for sure.
And I did read some recent research, and I can't even remember if it was strength or cross-sectional muscle size. But even just imagining yourself doing the exercise, it was strength. The subject lost less strength when they actually imagine themselves doing the exercise. So I do think there's probably a lot more going on than what we think in terms of just moving a bit of weight.
Yeah.
So the bros probably are on point to when they were saying like imagine how you want to look, or posing will maybe not as much as they think, but definitely maybe onto something.
It is interesting though, right? Because anytime you do posing practice, assuming that you're
Yeah.
You know, you're doing it more than just, you know, a double bicep in the mirror. It's exhausting. So
Yeah.
it is conceivable that, you know, but even before these studies, that might have done something for sure.
Yeah, because I remember the first time, because I competed for a good few years now, but I'd always done like fitness or like these kind of categories, and then I started doing natural bodybuilding,